I'm here with Dave, Sam, and Jack Cooper in honor of Jack's 90th birthday is why he's here in Omaha. And I just thought we'd have a nice conversation between the three Cooper boys and myself, who we've all grown up together. Our parents were very close over the years. So, Jack, I'd like to lead off with you with just a few comments about growing up here in Omaha and about your parents and so on.
Well, coming to Omaha from Holland, Poland was an adventure. And the way we ended up in Omaha is because of my uncle. And there's an interesting story about my uncle, how come he ended up in Omaha. About 1914 or so, he came to New York for an arranged marriage. And when he saw the bride, it didn't get felt it. So he was looking for some people that he knew from Rozhist, the town in Poland that he grew up, and they were in Omaha. So this is the way we ended up in Omaha.
And didn't your father come from a different town than Chelm originally
Yeah, he came from Rozhist.
In Russia.
in Russia?
See, at that time, Poland was divided between Austria and Russia. Poland, there was no independent Poland. So he came, and interesting history of my dad, he was a Russian soldier, but he was taken prisoner by the Germans. Now that's World War I. And what saved his life, he spoke German, so they put him in the officers' mess. And he was amazed at the affluence of the Jewish communities in Germany. He saw German officers. Told me one tale around Christmas time, one of the officers made some snide remarks, and he brought him on charge. You insulted my religion. But when you ask the German Rubister, they say we are Germans of Mosaic persuasion. They didn't say they were Jews. Anyway, this is the stories of my dad.
And was your dad then sent to that town of Chelm?
Yeah, he was a prisoner of war in Chelm, and that's where he met my mother.
In a candy store.
In a candy store? Was your mother working there, or was her family had the
I
store?
think the family had it,
No,
didn't it?
she was working in this.
She was an employee.
Yeah,
And did they marry in Chelm? They married in Chelm. Did your dad ever talk about his parents?
Not very much. I remember him saying that his dad died, I think, of the plague, and the burial society didn't want to touch his body, and so my dad had to prepare his father's body for burial himself, because it was, very fearful of catching the disease.
Did he ever talk about his mother?
I don't recall any stories about his mother, my grandmother. Do you, Sam or Jack?
No, no.
interesting thing about the town that he was raised, there was a German colony there, going back to the 1890s, and that's where he learned to speak German, even though it was a Russian.
Other than your uncle that was here in Omaha
Yeah.
already, did your dad have any sisters or brothers?
He had a sister who ended up in Moscow. I don't remember her name. I used to, but
Didn't he also have a brother that was killed in a swimming accident
as a child,
as a child?
yeah.
Yeah.
So then your father immigrated to this country. What year was that?
But it'd be around 1922.
It seems that the majority of the Jewish people that we know and we grew up with here immigrated here in about 1918 to 1922, 1923. When actually the immigration started to slow down. There were fewer people coming
Well,
over.
We were the classical immigrants. the father would come here and become a citizen, and 7 years later, he'd bring his wife and kids. And in 1929, Dad brought his wife and me and Sam.
What are your memories of that trip over?
Well, one memory, I used to speak clearer, was when we got off of the boat and took the train. It's the first time I'd seen black people, because I didn't see them in Holland, and I remember that. And when we took the train. We didn't speak English, but we managed. And then we took a cab from the Omaha train station to Dad's store. And somehow my mother managed.
Do you remember your dad seeing you guys for the first time? Do you have any memories of that, Sam?
Not the first time. The dates are a little confusing. I'm using the 1922 as the date of birth for me. So Dad came over maybe 1924
Yeah,
and stayed here in Omaha working. First I took my brothers, and then he bought some mom and papa stores independently run. There you could get, with $500 you could open up a business. It's a lot different today.
And David came along after you had arrived and settled in.
almost a year later. So,
So you really didn't get to know your brothers till you're probably 5 or 6, did you? That you can remember?
No, I don't have much remembrance of them. They were already in high school, I think, by the time I started recalling having anything to do with them.
one interesting thing about David's birth, he was born on Rosh Hashanah. My mother made Rosh Hashanah meals and then went to the hospital. I remember that.
Clarkson Hospital.
Yeah, right.
The old Clarkson Hospital was down on
Just a couple of blocks from the store.
So you grew up in the grocery business, and all three of you ended up working in the grocery store,
Yeah.
didn't you, over the years?
I would say so.
Yeah. You probably don't remember your dad's earliest store, do you, Dave?
No, I don't remember that, but I do remember the store on 24th and Jones. And there was really first he had the store on the corner, and then the landlord wanted that spot, so he moved to the next bay next to it. So, and that's the one I remember mostly.
And you lived up above the store during those
Yes,
years.
in
Yeah.
an apartment.
What are your memories of those living quarters?
I would say that compared to the earlier residence, it was a joy to behold. The actual residence was an apartment with, I think, two other people, two other residents, and it was a little difficult walking up those steps even when we were young. So we had to run up and down for oftentimes to get something, or stay in the store while Dad went to eat or something of that nature. But the store before I do recall, and that was the one on St. Mary's Avenue, 21st Street. It was next to another outfit called the Usum Garage, big store.
Lunsford.
Yeah, one of those. And when we arrived, Dad put us up in the back of the store, and we stayed there for a few months. I don't remember exactly when.
What did he have, little living quarters in the back of the store?
it amounted to a living quarters, but it was, put together with a table, a chair, and a cot or a bed type of thing, but we were all happy to be together.
And I'm sure that Yiddish was the language spoken in the home.
Yes.
Yes.
By that time, you were ready to start school, weren't you both?
I was 9 years old, and they put me in the first grade. And as I learned the language, they put me up. And the Mason School where I was the other immigrants were Polish, not Jewish. It wasn't a Jewish neighborhood. So I got acquainted with them because, South Omaha had a large Polish population, workers in the meat industry. And the principal of the school, Mason School, was an American, German Jewish background. And I found that. And then they also put me into a special class to anglicize my accent. And like the Vikings were very venturesome, stuff like that.
Do you remember that, Sam, starting school?
Yeah, and I think that the principal of Mason School at the time that I was going there was a woman by the name of Fanny Myers. And I guess the background that Jack just mentioned that she had, I wasn't aware of it. I just thought she was an American woman type of thing.
You guys, when you got here, you spoke Yiddish, of course. How about Polish? You mentioned Polish friends. Could you speak a little Polish?
At that time, I spoke some Polish, but I've forgotten it. I know a few words now. If somebody speaks Polish to me, words come back, but since we didn't speak Polish.
And Dave, what are your memories of starting Mason School?
Well, I remember, after the first day, that my parents took me down there, then after that I had to walk to school, and I had to cross Leavenworth Street, and I remember walking down the hill to the school, and going to the kindergarten, and it was kind of a little bit tense there and kind of nerve-wracking, but soon I kind of got used to it and got used to the teachers, and they got used to me. But I was speaking English and didn't speak much Yiddish. I understood, when my folks were talking Yiddish most of the time.
Do you remember those early years? Were you speaking a little Yiddish then? Because your brothers did, your parents did.
I think we were pretty much Americanized by then, so there wasn't very much Yiddish there. And we just the normal grade school education there that they gave us. And
One thing I think I'd like to mention is that that was the age where we felt that becoming Americanized was a thing to do. We didn't want to continue speaking Jewish or particularly do anything that the outsiders would look Jewish and the thing. I think now the Jewish community regrets that attitude that was had, and they been trying to revive it since then. So they have groups that are coming here. I don't know how successful it is, probably not too well. But everything is in English now. And you gotta distinguish that from Jews who know Hebrew. Like last night we had a wonderful Jew who conducted a service, sang beautiful songs, and talked and read Hebrew.
What are your early memories of holidays? Like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur?
Well, in some ways they were limited because they had the mom and papa stores, and he was open on Saturday. But one thing I want to mention, being it was a mom and papa store, we didn't live in a Jewish neighborhood because the Jewish section of town was in West Omaha. No, not West Omaha. North Omaha. And if you lived there, the atmosphere was different. And that was true of all the mama and papa stores. They would live in Gentile neighborhoods. And the kids around there that I grew up with Gentile. So I had a different upbringing this way. And the folks were observant, but they had to be limited because he was open on Shabbos.
And I remember that what they did on Shabbos is, your dad's family, my dad's family often visited together on Shabbos. It's the only time, actually, that the owners of grocery stores, it wasn't recreation. They weren't golfers or watch football or anything of that nature.
They sat around and talked,
Right.
visited.
Maybe your mother would have served some kind of a cake or cookie that she baked.
Yeah, that was the real only recreation they had.
Yeah, and us kids were outside while they were inside. We were running around trying to play some kind of a game with anybody who was willing to join it.
Dave,
Mhm.
I want to hear a little bit about your experiences at the grocery store, growing up in a grocery store, working there.
Well, first of all, the one on 24th Street, I remember, Dad was the butcher and the grocer, and sometimes I would be at the cash register, or my mother would be at the cash register, or helping people. There was always vegetables to unpack and bread to put away, especially on Saturday. You were saying, at that store, we were closed on Saturday, but we had to be there to receive the bread and milk, for Sunday, which was our big day. And then there was the canned goods would come in. We were with the Red and White group, which was sponsored by H.A. Marr Company, and we bought most of our canned goods from them. And I guess it was kind of a fun time, we just, although I perhaps at the time didn't think so, but it was, as I look back on it now, it was kind of nice. We worked together, and my mother and my father and me. I don't remember Sam and Jack being there too much. I think they were already busy with school or college, and Jack was working for an electrician, and I don't remember them being in the store too often, although they did, I remember, help us and sweeping the floor and taking out the garbage and stuff like that.
And delivering a few groceries to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I was pretty young for delivering groceries, though. I think that was mostly you, or Jack, or Dad, because they didn't like me crossing 24th Street. And that's where there was a lot of apartments over there, and they would call in for delivery service. And then the things on Park Avenue, that was a lot bigger store, although by today's standards it was still a very small store. But there we had I did more things. I did do delivery. When I got to be old enough to drive, before that it was the same routine of unpacking groceries and waiting on trade and cleaning the place and straightening things. We would sometimes take a whole department and put it in baskets and wash or dust the shelves and put everything back and rearrange things to look a little nicer. And we had a vegetable case that always needed some attention, or trimming the lettuce and displaying the vegetables and fruits and what have you. And we were open Sunday there too, closed Saturdays, and Sunday was a big day, our big day, but it was a small business, so it wasn't a big volume. In those days, things are so much cheaper that you almost can't hardly believe how, I think milk was 12 cents a gallon and bread was 12 cents a loaf, and just couldn't hardly picture that you could even put a wrapper on anything for 12 cents anymore. But that's pretty much what I remembered, and my dad and I worked together quite a bit, and sometimes he would let me help in the meat department. He showed me how to cut up chickens and even cut some steaks and chops and things like that. Slice and different things as lunch meat and stuff like that. So
Jack and Sam, what are your
Well,
memories of having worked in the store?
In the first store that they had, one thing I remember as far as if somebody was buying like $10 worth of groceries, I'd have to help them out, take it out to the car, because for $10 it was a lot of groceries. The other thing is, when the customer came in, they asked for canned goods, whatever they asked for, you handed it to them. It wasn't, they didn't walk around the store and pick it up. And the other thing I remember, my dad, every day or every other day, would go down to the market and he'd pick up fresh vegetables for the store. And I found that enjoyable.
Did you go with him, Jack?
Yeah. See, at that time I was 12 or 13 already. And we got acquainted with the neighbors. And but our association with Jewish families was kind of limited because where we lived, except your family, who were in the grocery business. I remember going there. And
the Hornsteins too were Ben's uncle, right? They were friends, but not nearly as close as the Nachmans.
But I think going way back, I think weren't the Handelmans close
Yeah.
to your parents?
But he died early.
Yeah, but I think early on, I think that, as I understood it, my parents became acquainted with your parents through the Handelmans.
Probably.
Is that right? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
And how about you, Sam? Did you get to go to the old market with your dad? You remember that?
Oh, yes, and it was sort of a thrill, especially when his dad bought I think it's called a town car. And it was room for a lot of merchandise to pick up, mostly the fresh produce. But I recall my visit, let's say, with a furlough from the Army, dressed in uniforms, and being there for my dad in the store. And it was a joyous time to come home Although, the first time I came home when the store was on Park Avenue, I got there and the place was closed. And finally I found that they were visiting the Knockwoods.
Do you remember those war years at all, Dave,
Oh, yeah,
working in the store?
yeah, the stamp, the ration stamps that they had, and the price, OPS, was it OPA? Office, Price Administrator, OPA. They had certain prices you could charge for things, you could charge more, and trying to keep that in control. And of course, the constant concern about my brothers that were, Jack went overseas almost immediately after his initial training here, and he was stationed in England for quite a long time, and then after the invasion, and he went into Europe. And Sam was in Europe too. Did you get to the Philippines or any place like that in the
Yeah,
South Pacific?
after spending time in Belgium, the war ended and we took a trip to the Panama Canal,
Yeah.
which was a thrill, on the way to the Philippines. And but before we got there, the atomic bomb was let out. And so we just sailed for a few days without stopping. And then when the peace treaty was signed on board, what's the name of that ship? The Missouri. And then we still continued to the Philippines, but the wedding, we got to the Philippines and we were operating a large army depot for grocery goods, actually, food produce. And we had the Philippines people working for us. We were going around, as a sergeant had maybe 20 people, corporal had 10 people to, do the heavy work. Oh, but you wanted to get back to the grocery stores, right?
No, I want to hear about, after you came home from the service, what did both you and Jack do after you were let go?
Okay. Of course, I was in the service and I was stationed in Great Britain, then in Belgium, and I met Sam in Belgium for a short visit, but I ended up in Bremen and Bremerhaven, Germany, towards the end of the war. And then after the end of the war, I came back to Omaha. One incident in Bremerhaven was kind of amusing. When the war ended, the opera opened up, and the first opera they presented was Madame Butterfly. If you know the story, it reflects on the U.S. Naval officer. And it took the authorities about 2 weeks to stop it. And I thought that was kind of funny. When I came back, I came back to Omaha, and I went to Tech High, and I was an electrician. I learned to be an electrician in electronics, and I had some jobs in Omaha working there. And then in '53, I went to visit my cousin in Texas, and I got a job there at Collins Radio. So I moved to Texas in 1953.
And how about you, Sam, after you came home from the service? Is that when you first went to the university, or had you gone prior to that?
Well, I went to University of Omaha before the war, maybe a couple of years. After I came back from the Army, I was pretty sure of what I wanted to do. I thought maybe law would be a good thing to get into, but that was a worrisome thing too. Probably my English wasn't as good, and it worried me a little. But we had what they called a accelerated law program in 2 years which lasted 2 years instead of 3 years. So,
Justin.
And you, Dave, when you came out of the service, what did you do?
When I came out of the service, I worked in the store, and then I went to the University of Nebraska at Omaha, which I think was still called Omaha University. And I got a degree in business and administration and engineering. And then I got a job at Western Electric at that time. And after a while there, then I changed jobs to work for Morris Paint Company as an outside salesman.